The Empire thought they had us, then humanity laughed and struck back. Part 1. Sam Green stared at the monitor in front of him. The blip on the screen shouldn't have been there. At first he thought it was a glitch. The deep space sensors often picked up random noise. But this was different. This was moving with purpose. "Hey, can you take a look at this?" Sam called over to his coworker. Beth Ryan walked over, coffee in hand. She leaned in, squinting at the screen. "That's weird. Run a diagnostic." Sam tapped. A few keys. The system checked itself and came back clean. The blip remained. "I'm going to call it in," Sam decided. As the junior officer on duty at North American Space Defense Command, he didn't want to cause a panic over nothing, but he also didn't want to ignore something that looked so strange. Within an hour, every space agency in the world was tracking the anomaly. It was big, whatever it was, and it was heading straight for Earth. By noon, the president had been notified. By evening, strange signals were being picked up by radio telescopes worldwide. "They're trying to communicate," said Dr. Paul Barnes, the nation's top expert in extraterrestrial communication theories. No one had ever expected him to put those theories to use. Until now. The message, when they finally decoded it, was simple. Prepare for inspection. Resistance is inadvisable. 3 days later they arrived. Massive ships, unlike anything humans had ever built, appeared in orbit around Earth. They were dark, angular, and intimidating. News channels worldwide showed the same images. People gathered in streets looking up at the sky. Some prayed, some cried, some got drunk. The end of human independence seemed at hand. They called themselves the Vexari Imperium, Dr. Barnes told the emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. From what we can translate, they control thousands of star systems. They consider us a primitive species on a resource-rich world. The room fell silent as the main screen lit up. The face that appeared wasn't human. It had too many eyes, a hard exoskeleton, and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. Yet the words came through in perfect English. "People of Earth. I am High Commander Zixtrell of the Vexari Imperium. Your world has been surveyed and found suitable for resource extraction. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for labor. You will surrender your governments to Vexari control within one planetary rotation. Resistance will result in limited orbital strikes to reduce population centers until compliance is achieved." The screen went dark. Panic swept across the globe. In some cities, riots broke out. In others, people fled to the countryside. Military forces worldwide went on high alert, though everyone knew Earth weapons would be useless against visitors who could cross the stars. In an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Heather Mills watched the broadcast for the third time. As head of the newly formed Planetary Defense Initiative, she had been given authority to coordinate Earth's response, whatever that might be. "They're giving us 24 hours, said Major Derek Powell, her second in command. "What do we do at that time?" Heather stood up and paced the room. Screens around her showed global reactions to the alien arrival. Fear, panic, despair. "Get me everything we have on their communications," she said finally. "And I want to know how they're translating our languages so perfectly." "You think there's a weakness there?" Derek asked. "I think they've been watching us for a while, studying us. But if they truly understood humans, they wouldn't expect us to just roll over." As teams of scientists and military personnel worked, through the night more information came in. The Vexari had sent smaller craft down to hover over major cities. They hadn't attacked, just watched. Their technology was clearly advanced but not magical. They used recognizable propulsion systems, just more efficient than anything Earth had developed. Dr. Olivia Grant, a xenobiologist pulled from her university, post to help with the crisis, noticed something about the Vexari communications. "Their signals pulse in a pattern that matches their neural activity," she explained to Colonel Mills over a video call. "It's like their technology is partially biological, or at least designed to interface directly with their nervous systems." "Could that be exploited somehow?" Heather asked. "Possibly. I need more data." Meanwhile, in his mother's basement in Iowa, Computer genius Alan Blackwood had hacked into a NASA feed and was studying the Vexari ship systems. He noticed patterns in their network traffic that reminded him of outdated Earth protocols. Secure, but predictable. He sent an anonymous email to the Department of Defense. Within hours, he was on a military jet headed to the same bunker where Colonel Mills was working. As the deadline approached, world leaders debated the response. Some wanted to fight despite the hopelessness. Others argued for immediate surrender, to save lives. President Eleanor Russell made the final decision. Earth would appear to surrender. "We buy time," she told Colonel Mills in a private call. "We pretend to cooperate while you and your team find a way to fight back. Can you do that?" "Yes, Madam President. We're already seeing potential weaknesses. They think they understand us, but they don't. Not really." "What do you mean?" Heather smiled grimly. "They've studied our technology, our weapons, our wars, but I don't think they understand human creativity, or our sense of humor in the face of disaster, or how we perform under pressure." The official surrender was broadcast worldwide. President Russell, her face solemn, announced that to prevent loss of life, Earth would accept Vexari oversight. Resources would be shared. Humans would cooperate with their new governors. The Vexari accepted this with little comment. They began landing larger ships, setting up bases, organizing humans into work groups. The occupation had begun, but in hidden places around the world, resistance was already forming. Colonel Mills established a secure network of communication, using old technologies the Vexari overlooked. Scientists shared discoveries about the invaders. Military personnel who appeared to cooperate were actually gathering intelligence. In the bunker, now serving as Resistance headquarters, Derek Powell watched the Vexari ships landing on a monitor. "They think it's over," he said quietly. "They think we've given up." Colonel Mills nodded. "That's their first mistake. Humans don't give up. We adapt. We find another way." She looked around the room at the determined faces of her team. "They think they've studied us, but they've missed the most important thing about humans." "What's that?" asked a young lieutenant. "When we're cornered, we don't just fight. We get creative, we change the rules." Heather smiled. "And right now, every human on this planet has one thing in common. We all want our world back." She turned to face her team fully. "So let's show these aliens what humans can really do when we work together." They think the war is over? It hasn't even started yet. Around the world, as Vexari ships continued to land and aliens in environment suits began to walk Earth's surface, humans watched. They obeyed. They bowed their heads, and they waited for their chance to strike back. The Empire thought they had us. Then humanity laughed and struck back. Part 2. 3 weeks after the surrender, life on Earth had changed completely. Vexari officers walked the streets of every major city. Their tall, insect-like forms towered over humans as they directed work crews and monitored activities. Giant mining operations had begun in previously protected wilderness areas. The aliens didn't care about Earth's environmental concerns. They wanted minerals, metals, and resources. Colonel Heather Mills watched a video feed of a mining operation in Colorado. The Vexari had set up enormous machines that could strip a mountainside in hours. Humans worked alongside the machines, looking small and helpless. "This is happening worldwide," Derek Powell said, scrolling through similar feeds from Africa, Asia, and South America. "They're taking everything they can get and storing it in those central processing facilities," Heather noted, pointing to large structures near each mining site. "Have we figured out what those are yet?" "Dr. Grant has a theory," Derek said. "She's waiting to brief you." In a secure room 2 levels down, Dr. Olivia Grant had been studying Vexari biology. The aliens hadn't expected humans to show scientific curiosity after surrender, so they hadn't been careful about what they revealed. Olivia had collected shed exoskeleton pieces, recorded their communications, and even managed to obtain tissue samples when a Vexari officer was injured in a work accident. "They're not as different from us as they look," she explained to Heather. "Their nervous systems use electrical impulses just like ours, but they're much more sensitive to certain frequencies." She played a recording, A high-pitched sound, barely audible to human ears, filled the room. This is within our hearing range, but just barely. To them, it's intensely uncomfortable, like nails on a chalkboard, but worse. It disrupts their ability to think clearly. Could we use this as a weapon? Heather asked. Not directly. They'd adapt quickly, but as part of a bigger plan? Absolutely. Meanwhile, in what used to be Silicon Valley, Alan Blackwood had been drafted into the Vexari Technical Integration Team. The aliens wanted humans who understood Earth's digital infrastructure. They needed to connect their systems to human networks. This was exactly what Alan had hoped for. While appearing to help them, he secretly mapped their systems. He discovered the Vexari used extremely efficient but rigid programming. Their systems never crashed but couldn't adapt to unexpected inputs. They code like they think, he told his resistance contact during a brief meeting in a supply closet. Everything follows rules. There's no room for creativity or exceptions. He passed over a small data drive. I've been building a backdoor into their systems. It won't let us shut them down, but we could make things interesting. Across the world, similar acts of resistance were happening. Factory workers appeared to build components for the Vexari but secretly modified them. Farmers added compounds to food shipments that weren't harmful but would cause mild digestive issues for the aliens. Small annoyances. Nothing that would trigger a crackdown, but enough to remind the invaders that humans weren't completely under control. In Washington, D.C., President Russell continued to play her part. She met regularly with High Commander Zixtrel, smiling and nodding as he explained how Earth would be reorganized under Vexari rule. The alien leader had taken over the White House, finding human architecture strange but adequate. Your people are adapting well, Zixtrel commented during one meeting. Our analysts predicted more resistance. We're practical, Eleanor replied, carefully. We want to survive. Sensible. The first human colonists will leave for the mining worlds next month. 3,000 workers for initial operations. Eleanor kept her face calm, though her heart raced. So soon? I thought we had more time to prepare people for off-world assignments. Preparations are unnecessary. They will be trained upon arrival. After the meeting, Eleanor sent an encrypted message to Colonel Mills. They're starting deportations in 30 days. Whatever we're planning needs to happen before then. In the underground bunker, Heather called her core team together. Dr. Grant was there, with her biological research. Alan Blackwood joined via secure video link with his computer exploits. Captain Frank Winters reported on his submarine, hidden in a remote fjord and being modified for a special mission. Karen Phillips, a linguistics professor who had been studying Vexari communication, shared her discoveries. They have no concept of humor, she explained. No irony, no sarcasm. When humans make jokes under stress, they interpret it as mental instability. They also take everything we say literally. Can we use that? Heather asked. Karen nodded. I've been teaching our people to communicate with them in ways that seem straightforward, but contain double meanings they miss completely. It's like speaking in code right in front of them. Professor William Howard, a retired military strategist, had developed what he called chaos theory warfare. The Vexari expect logical responses to their actions, he explained, pointing to a complex diagram. If they push, they expect us to either push back directly or give way. Their tactics assume predictable behavior. So we do the unexpected, Heather said, studying his plan. Exactly. Not just unexpected, seemingly irrational. They won't be able to form an effective response because they can't understand our actions within their framework. As the meeting concluded, Heather felt a spark of hope for the first time since the invasion. Humans across the planet were finding Vexari weaknesses and developing countermeasures. The aliens thought they understood humanity from studying our broadcasts and history. They saw our wars, our technologies, our divisions. But they missed what made humans unique. Our ability to adapt, to think creatively, to find humor even in darkness. We need to coordinate all these efforts, she told her team. The president says we have 30 days before they start sending people off-world. That's our deadline. Is it enough time? Derek asked. It has to be, Heather replied. I want daily progress reports from all departments. We need to look cooperative on the surface while getting everything in place. That night, as Heather tried to sleep in her small quarters, she thought about the enormous risk they were taking. If the Vexari discovered their plans, they would make good on their threats of orbital bombardment. Millions would die, but if they did nothing, humanity would become nothing more than a slave race working alien mines until Earth was stripped bare. They think they have us, she whispered to herself. They think we've given up. She thought about all the small acts of resistance happening around the world. Humans appearing to cooperate while secretly undermining the occupiers in countless, tiny ways. The joke was on the Vexari. They had no idea what was coming. Heather smiled in the darkness. The aliens had studied human history, human technology, and human biology. But they had never truly understood the human spirit. In 29 days they would learn. The Empire thought they had us. Then humanity laughed and struck back. Part 3. 2 weeks passed. The Vexari continued to believe that humans had accepted their rule. Each day, more resources left Earth on massive transport ships. Each day, the aliens extended their control. In a laboratory hidden beneath a grocery store in Portland, Dr. Natalie Wong worked with a small team of geneticists. They had been studying samples of Vexari biology smuggled from various occupation sites. It's the smell, Natalie said, holding up a small vial of yellowish liquid. Their communication isn't just verbal and visual. They use pheromones, chemical signals, to reinforce their messages. She passed the vial to her assistant. This compound seems to signal danger or warning among them. When exposed to it, they become agitated, less focused. Can we make more of it? Her assistant asked. Natalie nodded. We've already synthesized, enough to affect every Vexari on the planet. The challenge is delivery. That same day, in the underwater hideout of Captain Frank Winters and his submarine crew, a solution to that challenge was taking shape. The USS Barracuda, officially reported lost at sea during the initial Vexari arrival, had been converted into a special delivery system. The missiles aren't designed to explode, Frank explained to Colonel Mills during a secure video call. They're atmospheric dispersal units. Once launched, they'll release their payload into the jet stream. Will the Vexari detect them? Heather asked. They might see them on radar, but they'll look like weather research equipment. By the time they figure out what's happening, it'll be too late. Meanwhile, Joey Martinez had earned the trust of his Vexari supervisors. As an engineer working on one of their ships, he had shown himself to be helpful and efficient. The aliens didn't realize he was memorizing everything he saw. Their life support systems are separate from their main power grid, he reported to his resistance contact. If someone were to, say, introduce unusual frequencies into that system, the crew would be affected, but the ship would keep running. How would anyone get access to those systems? The contact asked. Joey smiled. I've been promoted. Starting tomorrow, I handle maintenance on the environmental controls. Across the globe, similar pieces were falling into place. The resistance had grown, but remained invisible to the Vexari. The aliens saw only what they expected to see, a defeated species accepting its new role in the Empire. Colonel Mills received updates from all teams at her underground command center. The plan was complex with many moving parts, but it was coming together. The Vexari have no imagination, she told Derek Powell as they reviewed the latest reports. They can't conceive of a strategy that isn't direct confrontation or simple sabotage. That's why they won't see this coming, Derek agreed. Each piece seems random or minor on its own. It's only when everything happens at once that the pattern emerges. And by then it'll be too late for them to respond effectively, Heather concluded. 5 days before the planned deportations were to begin, Alan Blackwood completed his work on the Vexari computer systems. He had created what he called a chaos engine, a program that wouldn't shut down their technology but would make it behave unpredictably. It won't trigger their security systems because it doesn't look like an attack, he explained during a briefing. It just introduces small errors that multiply over time. Communication systems will connect to the wrong receivers. Navigation will calculate incorrect coordinates. Artificial gravity will fluctuate randomly. Will it affect their weapons? Heather asked. That's the best part, Alan said with a grin. Their targeting systems will still work, but they'll identify the wrong targets. If they try to fire on us, they'll end up firing on each other. President Russell met with High Commander Zixtrell for what would be their final regular meeting. The alien leader seemed pleased with Earth's progress. The first transport ships are ready, he informed her. 3,000 humans will depart for mining Colony 7 in 4 days. Another 5,000 will follow next week. I understand, Eleanor said quietly. May I ask where this mining colony is located? It orbits the gas giant you call Jupiter, Zixtrell replied. Conditions are harsh but survivable with our technology. The humans will adapt or perish. Eleanor kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt cold fury. The Vixari didn't care how many humans died in their minds. They could always take more. Will I be permitted to address them before they leave? She asked. To wish them well on their journey? If you wish, Zixtrell said dismissively, though I fail to see the purpose. It's a human custom, Eleanor explained, a way of showing respect for their sacrifice. The alien commander made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a shrug. Very well. You may speak for 5 minutes before boarding begins. That evening, Eleanor sent the final confirmation to Colonel Mills. The address is approved. Operation Punchline is go. In the command center, Heather gathered her team leaders. The time had come to finalize their plans. Everything must be synchronized, she told them. We get one shot at this. If any major piece fails, the Vexari will realize what's happening and respond with overwhelming force. All teams are ready, Derek assured her. Everyone knows their role. Professor Howard pointed to his chaos theory diagram, now much more detailed. The beauty of this plan is that even if some elements fail, the overall pattern of unpredictable attacks will still achieve our goal, to confuse and disorient them long enough for our main objectives to succeed. Which are? Karen Phillips asked. First, prevent the deportations, Heather said. Second, disable their ability to bombard Earth from orbit. Third, capture High Commander Zixtrell. With their leader as our prisoner and their weapons neutralized, we can force negotiations. The final piece came from Dr. Grant. She had been analyzing Vexari psychology based on their communications and behavior. They have a rigid hierarchical structure, she explained. Without clear orders from above, lower-ranking Vexari become hesitant and ineffective. If we can isolate the command structure and introduce enough confusion, their entire system will break down temporarily. Heather looked around at her team. Everything they had learned about the Vexari, their biology, psychology, technology, and culture, had revealed weaknesses that could be exploited, not through direct force, which would fail, but through creativity and unpredictability. Human strengths that the aliens simply couldn't comprehend. 3 days from now, she said, the Vexari will learn they didn't conquer Earth. They just woke it up. That night, the coded message went out to resistance cells worldwide. The joke's on them. Punchline delivers in 72 hours. Across the planet, humans continued to work in Vexari facilities, board their ships as maintenance crew, process their food, and appear completely subdued. But now they watched the clock, waiting for the moment when humanity would reveal that its surrender had been the greatest deception of all. The countdown had begun. The Empire thought they had us, then humanity laughed and struck back. Part 4, the day of the first deportations arrived. 3,000 humans had been selected to board the Vexari transport ships. They gathered in a massive hangar that had once been Denver International Airport. Now it served as the main Vexari launch facility for the region. High Commander Zixtrell stood on a raised platform, surrounded by his officers. President Russell stood beside him, her face solemn as she prepared to address her people one last time before they left Earth forever. What the Vexari didn't know was that every person selected for deportation was actually a resistance member. They had volunteered for this assignment, knowing the risks. Each carried hidden devices designed by the resistance. Each knew exactly what would happen when the president gave the signal. People of Earth, Eleanor began, her voice carried by speakers throughout the facility. Today marks a new chapter in human history. As you journey to your new assignments, remember that you carry the spirit of humanity with you. She paused, then spoke the code phrase. Even in our darkest hour, we can find something to smile about. Across the hangar, Resistance members activated their hidden devices. Suddenly, a simple melody began playing through every speaker in the facility. It sounded like a children's song, cheerful and innocent, but embedded within it were the specific frequencies Dr. Grant had identified as disruptive to Vexari neural patterns. The effect was immediate. The Vexari officers began twitching, their movements becoming uncoordinated. High Commander Zixtrel grabbed his head, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. Simultaneously across the globe, the same melody began playing in every Vexari facility. Joey Martinez, aboard the main command ship in orbit, activated the program he had secretly installed. In their environmental controls, the same frequencies now filled every Vexari vessel. In the Pacific Ocean, Captain Winters gave the order. The USS Barracuda surfaced just long enough to launch its special missiles. These didn't target the alien ships directly. Instead, they soared high into the atmosphere, releasing Dr. Wong's synthetic pheromone compounds into the global air currents. Within hours, the disruptive chemicals would spread worldwide, further disorienting the invaders. But the Resistance couldn't wait. Hours. They needed to act now, while the initial confusion was at its peak. Alan Blackwood, from his workstation in what had once been Silicon Valley, activated his Chaos engine. He had spread the program throughout the Vexari network over the previous weeks, disguised as routine updates and system checks. Now, with a single command, he brought it to life. On Vexari ships worldwide, systems began to malfunction. Navigation plotted impossible courses. Communication devices transmitted garbled messages or connected to the wrong receivers. Gravity fluctuated, causing aliens to float momentarily before crashing back to the floor. Most importantly, weapons. Systems came online automatically, a defensive response to the perceived attack. But thanks to Alan's reprogramming, they identified other Vexari ships as the attackers. In Denver, President Russell was quickly escorted away from the confused High Commander by her security team, all Resistance members who had maintained their cover as cooperative officials. Zixtrel, still disoriented by the sound frequencies, barely noticed her departure. Get her to the secure facility, Colonel Mills ordered over the comm link. She watched the events unfolding on multiple screens in her command center. And capture Zixtrel if possible. He's our best leverage. The Resistance members who had posed as deportees now revealed the weapons they had smuggled into the facility. They weren't military grade. The Vexari had confiscated most of those, but they were enough to overwhelm the confused aliens. Remember, non-lethal force if possible, the Resistance leader in Denver reminded his team. We need prisoners, not martyrs. In orbit, the situation was becoming chaotic. Vexari ships, their targeting systems compromised, began firing on each other. The aliens, unable to understand why their own fleet was attacking them, responded in kind. What had been an organized occupation force was rapidly becoming a confused mess of friendly fire and panic. Lieutenant Lisa Chen, who had been working as a cooperative weapons specialist on one of the main Vexari cruisers, had secretly modified their orbital bombardment systems. When the ship's captain ordered planetary strikes against major human cities in retaliation for the apparent uprising, nothing happened. Instead, the targeting computers locked onto other Vexari vessels. The humans have done something to our systems, the captain raged, still fighting the disorientation from the sound frequencies and pheromones now circulating through the ship. Override manually. I'm trying, sir, Lisa said calmly, making adjustments that actually worsened the problem. But nothing is responding correctly. Back in her command center, Colonel Mills watched as reports flooded in from around the world. The plan was working even better than expected. The combination of neural disruption, pheromone confusion, and technological chaos had completely shattered the Vexari command structure. They're retreating in Australia and East Asia, Derek reported, monitoring the global situation. They're Ground forces are returning to ships, but the ships aren't coordinating with each other. What about orbital bombardment? Heather asked. That had always been their greatest fear, that the Vexari would simply destroy Earth cities from space if humans resisted. No signs of it, Derek said with a relieved smile. Lieutenant Chen's modifications are holding. They can't target the surface. In Denver, the operation to capture High Commander Zixtrel was succeeding. The alien leader, still affected by the sonic disruption, was unable to effectively command his forces. The resistance team managed to isolate him from his guards and secure him in a reinforced transport. We have the package, the team leader reported to Colonel Mills. En route to secure location Alpha. Across Earth, similar scenes played out. Humans who had appeared broken and defeated suddenly revealed themselves as an organized resistance force. The Vexari, unable to understand what was happening or coordinate an effective response, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. By nightfall, the tide had turned completely. Many Vexari ships had retreated to high orbit trying to escape the confusion. Others had crashed after their navigation and propulsion systems failed catastrophically. Ground forces, cut off from command and still suffering from the effects of the pheromones and sound frequencies, were surrendering or retreating to whatever ships could still function. In her command center, Colonel Mills allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the reports continue to come in. The plan had worked. Not through superior firepower or technology, but through understanding the enemy and using creativity to exploit their weaknesses. Send a message to all resistance cells, she instructed Derek. Operation Punchline successful. Begin Phase 2. Secure all Vexari technology and prisoners. Treat them humanely. She turned to Dr. Grant, who had been monitoring the biological aspects of the attack. How long will the effects last? The sound disruption is temporary. They'll recover once it stops. The pheromones will linger for about 72 hours, but their impact will diminish as the Vexari adjust. That's enough time, Heather said. With their command structure broken and their leader captured, we can force negotiations before they recover. She looked at the main screen, which showed Vexari ships in disarray, some drifting aimlessly, others fleeing Earth orbit entirely. Send a message to High Commander Zixtrel as soon as he's secure and coherent enough to understand, she ordered. Tell him that humanity is ready to talk, but this time as equals, not conquests. The Empire had thought they had humanity defeated. They couldn't have been more wrong. The Empire thought they had us. Then humanity laughed and struck back. Part 5-1. Month after Operation Punchline, Earth was still cleaning up the aftermath of the Vexari occupation. Crashed alien ships were being studied by human scientists. Captured technology was being reverse-engineered. Most importantly, the Vexari who had been captured were being treated well, much better than they had treated humans. High Commander Zixtrel sat across from Colonel Mills and President Russell in what had once been the Oval Office. The alien leader had recovered from the effects of the human countermeasures, but his arrogance was gone. He now understood he had completely underestimated humanity. Your terms are unusual, Zixtrel said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. Most species would demand reparations or territory. We're not most species, President Russell replied. We don't want your territory. We want recognition and respect. Heather slid a data tablet across the table. On it was the treaty that Earth's leaders had drafted. It was simple and direct. The Vexari Empire would acknowledge Earth as a sovereign, independent world. They would establish fair trade relations. They would share certain technologies, particularly those related to space travel. In return, humans would share their unique approaches to problem-solving and creative thinking. Your empire has conquered many worlds, Heather said, but you've never encountered a species like humans before. We don't want to be your enemies, we'd rather be your allies. Zixtrel's compound eyes studied the human women. You could have killed me, killed many of my people, yet you chose not to. Killing is easy, President Russell said. Building something new is harder, but better in the long run. The alien commander was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that his translator indicated was agreement. I will take this treaty to the Imperial Council. Your unusual approach to warfare has attracted attention. There are those in the Empire who believe humans could be valuable allies rather than just another conquered race. After Zixtrel left to communicate with his superiors, Heather and Eleanor shared a relieved look. Do you think they'll honor it? Heather asked. They're practical, Eleanor replied. We proved we can hurt them in ways they never imagined. Better to have us as friends than enemies. Over the next few weeks, the remaining Vexari forces on Earth prepared to leave. Their mining operations were shut down. Their bases were dismantled. Some of the damage they had done to Earth's environment would take years to heal, but humans were already working on solutions. Dr. Olivia Grant led a team studying Vexari biology and technology. What they learned would help humans advance their own science by decades. Their faster-than-light drive is actually quite simple once you understand the principles, she explained during a briefing. We could build our own within 5 years. Joey Martinez, who had helped sabotage the Vexari environmental systems, was now working with a team to adapt alien technology for human use. Their power generation is incredibly efficient, he reported. If we can reproduce it, we could solve Earth's energy problems permanently. Alan Blackwood had been offered his choice of jobs after his role in creating the Chaos Engine. He chose to work with Karen Phillips, the linguistics expert, on developing better translation systems. The Vexari translator is good, but it misses cultural context, Karen explained. We can do better. We need to if we're going to communicate effectively with other species out there. 6 months after the failed occupation, a new Vexari fleet arrived in Earth orbit. Unlike the first fleet, this one came openly, broadcasting peace messages in all human languages. The new Vexari ambassador, a younger, less rigid officer named Kirval, met with Earth's leaders in a special facility built for interspecies diplomacy. The Imperial Council has ratified your treaty, Kirval announced. Earth is recognized as a sovereign, independent world and ally of the Vexari Empire. There was applause from the human delegation. The gamble had paid off. Earth had not only survived its first contact with an advanced alien civilization, but had managed to turn potential conquerors into allies. There is more, Kirval continued. The Council was impressed by humanity's response to our occupation attempt. They have never seen a species use such creative methods against superior technology. The ambassador activated a holographic display showing a vast star map. The Empire spans 3,000 worlds in this sector of the galaxy alone. Many species have joined us, willingly or otherwise, but none have shown humanity's particular talents. Kirval indicated several points on the map where warning symbols flashed. We face threats from other empires and entities. Some use technologies we cannot counter with our traditional approaches. The Council believes humans might see solutions where Vexari cannot. President Russell exchanged glances with Colonel Mills. This was an unexpected development. You're asking for our help? Eleanor clarified. Yes, we offer an exchange program. Vexari specialists will help humans develop space travel capabilities more quickly. In return, human advisors will assist with certain problematic situations the Empire faces. So you want us to solve problems for you? Heather asked. We want to learn how you think, Kirval replied simply. The Vexari conquered many worlds through superior technology and force, but humanity defeated us through creativity and unpredictability. These are valuable traits the Empire wishes to understand better. The proposal was brought to a vote among Earth's nations. After much debate, it was accepted. Within a year, the first human delegation would travel to the Vexari homeworld to begin the exchange program. Sam Green, who had first detected the Vexari approach over a year ago, was selected to lead this historic mission. As he prepared to board the Vexari diplomatic vessel, he gave a short speech that was broadcast worldwide. A year ago, aliens came to conquer us. They thought they understood humans based on our technology and our history. They saw our wars, our divisions, and our struggles, and they thought we were weak. What they failed to see was our greatest strength, our ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to find hope even in the darkest moments. He looked up at the sleek alien ship that would carry him and 50 other humans to distant stars. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars not as a conquered race but as equals. We go to learn but also to teach. The Vexari thought they had us figured out. They were wrong. And now the entire galaxy will learn what it means to be human. As the ship rose into the sky, people around the world watched and cheered. Earth had faced its greatest challenge and not only survived but emerged stronger. The Vexari had come to take a world. Instead, they had awakened a species that would now change the galaxy. The Empire had thought they had humanity defeated. They couldn't have been more wrong.